You know that first cup of coffee in the morning? For so many of us, it's just essential. But have you ever really thought about the true cost of that cup? We tend to worry about the little things, right? The pods, the paper filters, how much electricity we're using. But what if the real environmental hit is hiding somewhere else completely? Turns out we might be focusing on the wrong thing all along. So let's dig in and see what the data actually says. So, this all starts not with some giant scientific study, but with a really simple, down to earth question from a blog called Northwest Edible Life. A writer, Nick, got a new coffee pot that had this 4-hour keep warm feature, and his wife Erica asked this just brilliant question. I mean, it's a classic kitchen debate, isn't it? Is it better to just let the machine sip a little electricity to keep the coffee hot and ready to go? Or should you just let it cool and zap a cup in the microwave whenever you want a refill? Instead of just guessing, Nick decided to get scientific. He actually plugged in a power meter to measure exactly how much juice each method was using. And here's what he found. Keeping the pot warm for 2 hours used 270 watt-hours. Reheating 2 cups in the microwave, only 225. So yeah, the microwave is the clear winner here. But does that win actually matter? The grand total energy savings came out to 45 watt-hours. Now, that number sounds like something, right? But what does 45 watt-hours actually look like in the real world? And this, right here, is the crucial point. Those 45 watt-hours, that's just 0.014% of an average home's daily energy use. It's a rounding error. And that realization just completely changes the conversation. If we're only saving a tiny bit of energy in the kitchen, then we have to be looking in the wrong place for the real environmental cost of our coffee. Okay, so this is where we have to zoom out, way out. The answer isn't in this little kitchen experiment, it's in the entire global journey that coffee bean takes to get to you. And to understand that whole journey, scientists use a really powerful tool. It's called a life cycle assessment, or an LCA, and it's basically a way to measure the total environmental footprint of a product from the very beginning, the cradle where its raw materials are grown, all the way to the end, the grave where it's thrown away. It tracks everything, the farming, the shipping, the packaging, how you use it, and what happens after you're done. And to see this in action, we're going to look at a big LCA study on coffee. A firm called Quantis did this super deep dive for Nespresso, and they analyzed the entire chain you're looking at here, from the farm through all the processing and distribution, all the way to the energy you use to brew your cup and what happens to it after. This is the whole picture. So, after all that, what did this huge study actually find? Well, the results might really surprise you, especially if you're someone who's been focusing on things like the aluminum pods or the paper filters. Okay, so here's surprise number 1. The study measures the total carbon footprint in grams of CO2 equivalent. That's just a standard way to measure all greenhouse gases. A cup from a good old drip filter comes in at 105 grams, and an espresso pod, almost the exact same. The machine with the highest impact, funny enough, is the full automatic bean-to-cup model. So if it's not the pod, what is driving these numbers? The answer is in the breakdown. And here it is, the big aha moment. Just look at that huge purple slice. For an espresso cup, almost half, 48% of its entire carbon footprint comes from the green coffee supply. That's the farming. And that blue section, the use stage at home, that's another third of the impact. And the packaging, the aluminum pod that gets all the attention, it's only 11% of the total. So the takeaway is crystal clear. The two biggest factors by a long shot are how the coffee is grown on the farm and how we use our machines at home. Everything else, from shipping the beans across the ocean to the packaging, is a much, much smaller piece of the puzzle. And that home use category, by the way, that includes not just brewing the coffee, but also the energy to manufacture the machine in the first place, and even washing your cup. So let's just pause on that last point for a second. Making the machine. Because while its impact is part of your coffee's footprint, the machine has its own life cycle and its own environmental cost. And this is where our simple coffee habit connects to a much, much bigger global problem. I mean, think about it. Every coffee maker, every microwave, every gadget we buy, it has a limited lifespan. And when it breaks, or we just want to upgrade, it doesn't just vanish. It joins this massive and rapidly growing global river of electronic waste. It becomes what we call e-waste. And this term covers all of it, all the discarded electronics. And yep, that definitely includes your old coffee pot. Because technology moves so fast, we're generating this stuff faster than we ever have before.
And the scale of this problem is just staggering. In 2019 alone, the world generated over 53 million metric tons of e-waste. To put that in perspective, that's heavier than all the commercial airliners ever built. And it's not just the sheer volume. These devices are full of both valuable metals and toxic stuff like lead and mercury, which makes how we get rid of them absolutely critical.
So what can we do about it? Well, the solutions really start with our own choices. It means buying smarter, choosing things that are built to last, not built to be thrown away. It means trying to fix things, extend the life of what we already own instead of just replacing it. And when something is truly at the end of the line, it's so important to find a certified program to recycle it responsibly. And finally, we can vote with our wallets and support companies that are trying to build more sustainable products from the get-go. All right, let's pull all of this back together. We started with this tiny energy battle in a kitchen, and we ended up looking at global farming and e-waste. So what does this all mean? What are the real takeaways for a more sustainable cup of coffee? So let's break down what really, truly matters. First, as we saw, the biggest impacts come from two places, the farm and your home. Now this next one is fascinating. Our own behavior is key. The study found that while we worry about pods, their precise portioning can actually reduce waste. It turns out people with drip filters often use too much coffee or, brew a whole pot and then throw half of it away. That waste can lead to a higher overall impact than the pod. And finally, that whole kitchen energy battle we started with, it's pretty clear now that it's totally insignificant compared to these other huge factors. Which brings us right back to where we started. Remember Nick and his kitchen experiment? After all his measuring, he decided that the tiny extra energy cost was, and this is a quote, "a reasonable price to pay for the simple joy of hot coffee waiting for me." And that's such a key part of this whole thing. It's not about finding one single perfect answer. It's about understanding the real trade-offs so we can all make more informed choices. So the next time you go to brew a cup, what are you going to think about? The pod you're about to use, the pot you're brewing it in, or the plant, maybe thousands of miles away where this whole journey began? Knowing the whole story really does change the question entirely.